So in the previous video we looked at adding path parameters in REST Assured. And there are other types of parameters called query parameters. Now those aren't actually supported by my video game database, so for that we're going to need to use the Football Data API. So we're going to run our first test against the Football Data API. So let's open it up in Postman. So this is the endpoint that we're going to call, and it has a specific query parameter for the season, for setting the season to 2016. So let's look at how we would write our REST Assured test for that. Now first of all, we remember in our test config we're going to be specifically using this football request spec. So at the moment by default we set REST Assured to use the video game request spec, but this time we're specifically going to set it for the football request spec so that we call this endpoint with these headers, etc. So let's add a new class for these tests so that we don't get confused. We'll call it football tests. That's fine for now. Let's do our initial bit of work. So we add in the static import. I beg pardon, it's import static, wrong way round. Import static io.rest assured star not 8. Thank you. And then we're going to extend this from the test config as well. Okay, so that's our setup done. Just zoom that in a bit for you so you can see. Now let's start writing our test. So we're going to call this test get all competitions one season. That's fine. So let's write out our given. And so now we do have something to add in for the given. We need to add in the spec that we want to use. So we're not using the video game spec now, we're specifically using the football request spec. So we're specifically using this specification and all of these details. So we'll add in that spec, and we're also going to add in our query parameter. In this case our query parameter was season, and we're going to use the 2016 season. So again, that query parameter, that's this part here, the query parameter of the API. Let's also add in the when step to make the actual call to the endpoint. Say when, and then we'll just actually get the actual endpoint. So the actual endpoint for us is just competitions. And that's it. So that's the competitions endpoint. And so if we look in the test config, we can see that we've already set up the base UI and the base path. We just call the competitions endpoint. So this endpoint, we're going to add in that query parameter as well. So let's go ahead and run that test. Okay, we got a good response. So let's have a look in Fiddler and see what we got back. And we can see that we've called that endpoint, we've specified that query parameter, and we're getting all of this data come back. So that's how to add query parameters in REST Assured.